everybody! Last year I did a video on how no-till gardens work, and I wanted to do part 2, it's been a year, kind of how our garden is working. Now last year this whole area was about 4 to 5 feet weeds, and ideally you wouldn't till a no-till garden, but since we were starting from scratch we did till it, but then everything we did from there was to plan on not tilling subsequent years. We used large amounts of wood chips, so we tilled everything, we raked all of our walkways, and then we laid down cardboard, and we got wood chips free from the city. They get the wood chipped and then they can dump it for free on your property. And then we hauled all that in and we put it onto our walkways. We did not put any on our beds because it ties up nitrogen and we didn't want that. Then we raised our beds up and then we put, it was composted hay and manure into our beds. And then this is year 2 that we've done that, and we kept on, we pretty much had no weeds all summer long last year. No weeds in our walkways at all, and very minimal in our beds, because then we did compost or mulch on top of our beds with hay, and that decomposed and fed it as it was decomposing. But then during the winter time, in the fall we didn't do as much as we should have. We would have ideally composted again and mulched them heavily so that they didn't grow weeds, but we didn't, and so there was quite a few weeds in the springtime, and then the chickens got out of their enclosure and kind of made a mess. So we've had to reestablish our beds and our walkways a little bit more, but a lot of it was already there and very minimal weeds. And then we got a hula hoe and we hoed up any of the weeds in the beds, and then we put another layer of compost on there. And you can see we have the chickens back here. They have a better shelter, so they won't be in our garden anymore. And I wanted to kind of show you what the rest of the garden looked like. So right now we are doing, up at the very top, so this part was a little more manicured, and at the very top we have an area that's less manicured, and we just put wood chips down on it and did nothing else to it. And that actually did better than the main part of a garden because it was covered. The ground likes to be covered, and if it's not covered, it'll cover itself with weeds. So if you have more weeds than you want, just know that it's nature's way of telling you you're not covering the ground well enough. So you can see here, we just put wood chips down, and the chickens so lovingly spread them out. So anything that we had planted didn't grow, but the weeds didn't either. This area, all the way up there and then here, was all tilled at the exact same time. The only difference between this area here and that area up there is the fact that these got wood chips and that didn't. And you can see there's obviously a lot less weeds. We haven't weeded any of this. There's a few that have kind of popped through where there wasn't enough wood chips and a little bit more tenacious weeds, but it's nothing compared to that. Now we will have to till that this year because we didn't put the wood chips on it. You could dig it up with a digging fork and weed it. I'm not quite that ambitious, and so we will leave that to the tiller. But this area, now that it's been covered in the, covered all winter long, we have raked it up, and our walkways will keep the wood chips, our beds will not have the chips. And then I use my hula hoe, which you can see over there, it looks like a stirrup, and we use that to kind of get any of the weeds that were left inside of it, and also loosens the soil. And then we use our digging fork to really get down deep and get the air into the deep levels of the soil as well. And then we'll just put some compost over that, turn it into some furrows. You can see over here I've been doing the furrows on this bed. We'll just do 4 furrows per an 8-foot section, and then we have this beautiful walkway going down the entire length of the garden. The garden will eventually be about 100 feet long, 30 by 100, and with a 4-foot walkway down the middle and 8-foot beds. So it's really awesome, and we really don't have to do a ton of work this year where we put the wood chips. We'll have to do a ton more where we didn't, and then every year it gets better because we can continue to grow upon what we did the year before instead of restarting it like you do in a traditional garden, because we don't have to retill. We have the beds already there, and then you can kind of get a little more creative with what you do because you're not spending all your time and energy remaking the beds. The only reason we have to remake the beds on this one is because the chickens made the mess, but they won't anymore, and we'll just continue to be able to keep that as our bed. We can plant things in there such as perennials, strawberries, raspberries, and we don't have to till around them like you would in a traditional garden, and it makes it just a lot nicer. Also, one of the reasons you don't want to till, not just because of the work and the energy, is because you disrupt the soil structure. There's a lot of microbes in the soil that live in different levels, and when you till them, year 1, a lot of them die off, and you have like all this fresh vegetation that's dying off and releasing nitrogen. And so year 1, you'll do really well. Your garden will do great, and you're like, this tilling thing is awesome, we love it. And there's no weeds, I don't have to weed, we till it up, it's great. But then year 2, you'll do the same thing. Okay, the weeds have come back, I'm gonna till it again, and it won't do quite as well. And then probably by year 3, you're almost getting nothing. And so most people will either turn to synthetic fertilizers to amend the soil, or they'll stop gardening altogether. Because what's happening is you get that initial burst of die off of all the microbes when you till it year one. But every subsequent year, your soil structure continues to deplete and deplete and deplete, and you don't have that initial burst of microbes because they cannot rebuild. So right now, when we're doing this no-till, we're actually, yes, we disrupted it year one, but every subsequent year, we are really lovingly tending that soil so that it doesn't have to cover itself up with weeds, and allowing that structure to reestablish itself. And then we're giving it natural fertilizers like manure, pretty much any waste product that we have in our house or garden. So we're composting. We have manure from our chickens, horses, cows. We get a lot of rotten hay around here that we collect from neighbors that don't want it. We don't have a lot of leaves, but if you did, that would be a great thing to add as well. What waste products do you have in your area that can be reused and make your garden beautiful and to tend it? So that's kind of how we do the no-till garden, and this is it. We haven't put a single seed in the ground, but we will be tomorrow now that we know the chickens aren't getting out to dig them up anymore. And we will eventually have a 30-foot by 100-foot beautiful garden that we will not have to till year after year. So there you have it. I hope that helps somebody. Have a great day and happy gardening.